When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. That's what I remember most when I think back on all of it. Not the bus, not the police, not the jail cell, but the smiling. How your face can learn to do one thing while your heart is doing another. I was 82 years old, sitting in a courthouse in Montgomery, Alabama. A judge was about to clear my name, after 66 years, and my son's wife leaned over and whispered that I should leave, that this was taking too long, that I was too old to sit in a hard wooden chair waiting for something that happened before she was even born. I looked at her and I smiled. I didn't say, "Young lady, I waited 15 years just to sit in the front of a bus. I waited 30 years for anyone to say my name in a history book. I waited a lifetime for my own people to decide I was good enough to be remembered." I just smiled, because that's what we learn to do. That's what we've always done. My name is Claudette Colvin, and this is the story they didn't put in the textbooks. It's not a story about anger. It's not even really a story about a bus. It's about being 15 years old and feeling the hands of women who died 100 years before you were born pressing down on your shoulders. It's about being too dark, too poor, too pregnant, too young, too everything that matters, and not enough of anything that counts. It's about what happens when history needs you, but the movement doesn't want you. And it's about what I learned, sitting in that courtroom at 82, watching a black judge prepare to tell the state of Alabama that they should never have arrested a child for sitting still. I learned that justice isn't like lightning. It doesn't strike fast and bright and clean. Justice is like water. It drips, it seeps, it carves canyons one drop at a time. And sometimes you don't live to swim in the river you spent your whole life digging. But you dig it anyway. Because the children are coming behind you, and they need a place to swim. Let me tell you about Pine Level, Alabama. If you've never been to a place like Pine Level, it might be hard to understand. It wasn't a town, really. It was a spot on the map where the red dirt met the sky and the cotton grew white as bone in the summer heat. I was born in Birmingham in 1939, but Birmingham was just where my mother brought me into the world. Pine Level is where I became who I am. My aunt and uncle raised me, Mary Ann and Q.P. Colvin. They gave me their name when I was small, and I wore it like a blanket for the rest of my life. I was the oldest of 8 sisters, though not all of us lived under the same roof. Families spread out back then. You went where there was room, where there was food, where there were hands to help raise you. Our house didn't have electricity when I was little. I want you to understand what that means, not as a fact, but as a feeling. When the sun went down, the world went dark. Not dim, not quiet, dark. The kind of dark that wraps around you like cloth. We had oil lamps and we used them carefully because oil cost money and money was something we never had enough of. But I didn't know we were poor, not really. Because we had horses and cows and pigs and chickens. We had a dog and a cat. We had land under our feet and sky over our heads and the biggest, sweetest family gatherings you ever saw when the holidays came around. My relatives would drive down from the north in those big, shiny automobiles. I thought they were royalty. They'd pull up in the dirt driveway and we'd all run out to meet them, the little boys already racing each other to see who got to crank the ice cream maker first. We made stew from scratch. We dug a pit in the yard and cooked meat over coals until it fell apart in your hands. The grown-ups laughed and talked, and the children ran through the dark until someone called us in to eat. Those were the best nights of my childhood. I didn't know then that the North was different. I didn't understand why my relatives could sit wherever they wanted on a bus in New York or Chicago, or why they didn't have to step off the sidewalk when a white person walked by. I just knew they had nice cars and pretty clothes, and they always brought candy for the children. I thought freedom was something you could drive down in a shiny automobile and hand out like peppermints. I was 6 years old when I learned different. I was in a store with my mother, just a little general store, the kind where you could buy a bit of flour and a bit of sugar and maybe a piece of candy if you had a nickel. I saw the lollipops. They were on a low shelf, bright colors wrapped in cellophane, and I tugged on my mother's skirt and pointed. She said maybe. She said we'd see. She was trying to figure out how far her coins would go. And then I heard the laughter. It was children laughing. I turned around and there was a little white boy about my age looking at me. He was smiling, but not the way children smile when they want to play. He said, "Let me see your hand." I didn't know any better. I raised my hand open like I was reaching for something. He put his hand against mine, palm to palm. His skin was light and mine was dark, and we were just two children measuring hands. My mother hit me. She didn't hit me hard, but she hit me fast before I even understood what was happening. Her hand came down on my forehead, and I stumbled backward, my eyes filling with tears, not because it hurt, but because I didn't know what I had done wrong. And then the boy's mother said, "That's right, Mary. That's right. Not stop that, not leave that child alone, not what are you doing? That's right." My mother didn't say anything. She took my hand and she paid for whatever she was buying, and she walked me out of that store and all the way home without speaking. When we got inside, she sat me down at the kitchen table. She knelt in front of me so her face was level with mine. And she told me, in a voice I had never heard before, quiet and tight like a jar about to break, "You are never to touch a white child. You are never to talk to a white child. You are never to look at a white child." I asked her why. She said, "Because that's how we stay alive." I didn't understand. I was 6 years old. I thought staying alive was about not running into the road and not touching the hot stove and not talking to strangers. I didn't know that the color of my skin was a stranger I would have to learn not to be every single day for the rest of my life. But I learned. We all learned. My mother's name was Mary Ann. She was a cook. She worked in white people's kitchens, preparing food she couldn't eat on dishes she couldn't use, standing over stoves that belonged to women who called her by her first name while she called them Miss. She never complained about it, not to me. But I remember watching her hands. Her hands were always moving, kneading dough, shelling peas, wiping counters, scrubbing floors. And I remember thinking, those hands touched me. Those hands held me. Those hands pulled my hair into braids and wiped the tears from my face. And yet, in that store, those same hands had hit me to keep me safe. That was the bargain. That was the deal. You learn to hurt your own children so the white people won't hurt them worse. You teach them to bend so they don't break. You tell them that staying alive is the victory, even if staying alive means making yourself small. I thought about my mother's hands for a long time after that day. I didn't know that someday I would feel other hands on my shoulders. Hands of women I never met. Women who refused to bend. Women who broke instead. And I didn't know that those hands would hold me in a bus seat and refuse to let me go. I was a good student. That's important to say because later people would act like I was just some angry teenager who didn't know any better. But I knew. I paid attention. I did my homework. I memorized the lessons my teachers gave me, even the ones they weren't supposed to teach. I went to Booker T. Washington High School in Montgomery. It was named for a man who told Black people to work with their hands, to earn their place, to be patient and wait for freedom to come slow and quiet like the morning. But I had another teacher, too. Not in the classroom exactly, but in the world. His name was Jeremiah Reeves. I don't know if you've heard of Jeremiah Reeves. Most people haven't. He was 18 years old, just a few years older than me. He was a drummer. He played jazz. He had dreams of making music and traveling the world and becoming someone. And he was accused of rapping a white woman. I was 12 years old when they arrested him. I was 15 when they executed him. He never stopped saying he was innocent. He never stopped fighting. He wrote letters from his cell, poems and songs and pleas. And some of us read them and passed them around and cried over them in secret. I thought about Jeremiah Reeves on the bus that day. I thought about how he had dreams, how he had talent, how he had a future that someone decided didn't matter because his skin was dark and a white woman said words about him that everyone chose to believe. I thought about how the state of Alabama killed him anyway, even after the Supreme Court said they should give him a new trial. They just did it faster. They rushed him to the electric chair before anyone could stop them. I was 15 years old. Jeremiah Reeves was dead, and I was learning that the law was not a shield. The law was a rope, and white people held both ends. March 2, 1955. It was a Wednesday. I remember that because Wednesday was the day we had music class, and I loved music class. I loved singing. I loved the way our voices would rise together in the auditorium, blending and swelling and filling up the room like something holy. School let out at 3 o'clock. I walked to the bus stop with my friends. We were laughing about something, I don't remember what. Maybe a boy, maybe a teacher. Maybe just the ordinary joy of being young and together and the weather finally turning warm after a cold winter. The bus came. It was number 2857. I didn't notice the number then. I just saw the doors open and I climbed aboard, dropping my dime into the fare box, walking past the white section in the front because I knew better than to sit there. We sat in the colored section at the back. Not the very back, that was for when the bus got crowded and we had to move further. We sat in the middle, where the sign said colored people could sit until white people needed the seats. I sat by the window. There were 4 of us in that row, me and 3 other students, all girls. The bus filled up. People got on and off, the normal rhythm of an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. And then a white woman got on the bus. I didn't know her name. I didn't know where she was going or where she had been. I just saw her standing in the aisle, looking for a seat, and the white section was full. The bus driver turned around. His name was Robert Clear. I didn't know that then either. He was just a white man in a blue uniform, his face set in the expression I had seen 1,000 times before, the expression of someone who expects to be obeyed. He said, "Let me have those seats." My friends looked at me. They looked at each other. And then they stood up, one by one, gathering their books, moving toward the back of the bus. I didn't move. I didn't decide not to move. It wasn't a decision, not like choosing what to wear or what to eat or which way to walk home. It was something else. It was like my body knew something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The bus driver said it again, louder this time. I said, "Let me have those seats." I looked at him. I don't know what my face showed. I don't know if he could see the fear I was trying to swallow or the thoughts racing through my head. I said, "It's my constitutional right to sit here." He said, "You get up or I'll call the police." I said, "Call them." I want to tell you what I was feeling, but I don't have the words. Even now, all these years later, I can't explain it. It wasn't bravery. Bravery is when you know the danger and you choose to face it anyway. I didn't feel like I had a choice. It was like something was holding me in that seat. Later, I found the words for it. I told a reporter. I felt like Harriet Tubman's hands were pushing me down on one shoulder, and Sojourner Truth's hands were pushing me down on the other shoulder. I meant it. I wasn't being poetic. I wasn't trying to make a beautiful sentence. I felt them. I had learned about Harriet Tubman in school. She was born into slavery and she escaped, but she didn't just escape. She went back 13 times. She led hundreds of people out of bondage and she never lost a single one. She carried a rifle and she used it. She said she could have freed more people if they knew they were enslaved. I had learned about Sojourner Truth, too. She was born Isabella Baumfree, sold away from her parents at age 9, married to an older enslaved man, forced to bear children who were taken from her and sold. And then she walked away. She walked away with her baby and she didn't stop walking until she was free. And then she changed her name and she traveled the country and she spoke the truth so plainly and powerfully that people wept and laughed and shouted and converted. Those women, those hands, pushing down on my shoulders. I couldn't move. I didn't want to move. History had me glued to the seat. The police came. 2 of them, white men in uniforms, their faces red from the heat or from anger or both. They stood over me in the aisle of the bus and told me to get up. I didn't get up. One of them reached down and grabbed my arm. He pulled. I pulled back. I wasn't trying to fight. I was trying to hold on. I was trying to stay in that seat where Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth were holding me down. They dragged me. I remember my feet catching on the edge of the seat. I remember my books falling, pages scattering on the dirty floor of the bus. I remember the other passengers watching, their faces frozen, nobody moving, nobody speaking. I remember the white woman who wanted my seat. She was standing right there. She could have sat in the seat across the aisle, it was empty. There was always an empty seat across the aisle. The law said white people couldn't sit next to black people, but they could sit across from us. They could sit diagonal from us. They could sit anywhere except right beside us. She didn't want the empty seat. She wanted mine. She wanted me to move, to stand, to give her what belonged to her by right of skin. And I wouldn't. They dragged me off the bus. My wrist was twisted behind my back. The metal of the handcuffs was cold even through my coat. I was crying. I know I was crying because I was 15 years old and I was being arrested, and I didn't understand how standing up for what was right could feel so much like doing something wrong. They put me in the police car. One of the officers said something about me, something ugly. I don't want to repeat it. I said, "It's my constitutional right." They laughed. The jail cell was small. There was a bench but no mattress. There was a toilet but no seat. There was a window, but it was too high to see anything but sky. I sat on the bench and I waited. I don't know how long I was in that cell. Hours, maybe. I know it got dark. I know I stopped crying because my eyes had no tears left. I know I thought about my mother and what she would say when she found out what I had done. I thought about my father, too. My adoptive father, QP Colvin. He was not a man of many words. He worked with his hands. He loved me the way men love who don't know how to say it out loud, by providing, by protecting, by being present. Later that night, my mother and the pastor from our church came to get me. They paid the bail. They signed the papers. They took me home. And when we walked through the door, my father was sitting in his chair with a loaded shotgun across his lap. He said, "The Klan is not going to take you out tonight." He sat there all night. I don't know if he slept. I don't know if he even blinked. He just sat in that chair with his shotgun and his silence and his love, guarding the door against men who killed children like me for refusing to move to the back of a bus. I went to my room. I lay down on my bed. I stared at the ceiling. And I thought, what have I done? The days after my arrest were the loneliest of my life. I thought, foolishly, that people would be proud of me. I thought the adults in my community would pat me on the shoulder and say, "Well done, Claudette. You stood up for all of us." But they didn't. My friends stopped talking to me. Their parents told them I was a troublemaker. I was the girl who got arrested, the girl who fought with police, the girl who caused problems that nobody asked for and nobody wanted. I didn't understand. I had done what the preachers and the teachers told us to do. I had stood up for my rights. I had refused to accept an injustice. Wasn't that what we were supposed to do? But I was learning a hard lesson. The movement didn't need me. Not yet. Not like this. The NAACP came to talk to me. E.D. Nixon, who ran the Montgomery chapter, asked me questions about what happened on the bus. He wrote down my answers. He nodded. He thanked me for my time. And then nothing happened. Months passed. I went back to school. I kept my head down. I tried to be invisible the way I had been before the bus. But it was too late. Everyone knew who I was. Everyone knew what I had done. And then something else happened. Something that would seal my fate. That would push me even further outside the circle of people who were choosing, who would represent our struggle. I got pregnant. I don't want to talk about the father. I don't want to describe what happened or how it happened or why. I will say this, I was 15. He was older. He was married. And what happened between us was not something I chose. Years later, I called it statutory rape, because that's what it was. But at the time, I didn't have words for it. I just had shame. When the leaders of the movement found out I was pregnant, they made their decision. I was not going to be the face of the bus boycott. I was not going to be the symbol of resistance. I was a pregnant teenager with dark skin and a poor family and no husband and no prospects and no future. They chose Rosa Parks instead. Let me be very clear about Rosa Parks. She was a good woman. She was a kind woman. She became my friend and my mentor, and I never resented her for being chosen when I was not. But we need to tell the truth about why she was chosen. Rosa Parks was lighter-skinned than me. She was lighter complected. That matters. It mattered then and it matters now, though we don't like to talk about it. Rosa Parks was older. She was 42. She was a respected seamstress who worked for white customers who loved her. She was the secretary of the NAACP. She was married. She was dignified. She was respectable. She was everything I was not. The leaders of the movement looked at me, 15 years old, pregnant, poor, dark-skinned, and they decided I was too much of a risk. They couldn't put me on a poster. They couldn't raise money for my defense. They couldn't ask the white newspapers to write sympathetic stories about a girl who had done the right thing but also, in their eyes, the wrong thing. I don't blame them. I understand why they made the choice they made. But understanding doesn't erase the hurt. Rosa Parks was arrested on December 1, 1955. She was riding the bus home from work at the Montgomery Fair department store, where she was a seamstress. She sat in the colored section, just like I had. A white man got on. The bus driver asked her to move. She refused. She was arrested. She was fingerprinted. She was jailed. And this time, the movement was ready. The Montgomery bus boycott began on December 5. 40,000 black riders stayed off the buses. They walked to work. They shared cars. They formed carpools. They refused to participate in the system that treated them as less than human. The boycott lasted 381 days. I watched it from the outside. I was not invited to speak at rallies. I was not asked to join the organizing committee. I was not celebrated or honored or thanked. I was 17 years old. I had a baby to take care of. I had no money and no support and no idea how I was going to survive. But I still had my voice. And when the lawyers came looking for plaintiffs to challenge the bus segregation laws in federal court, I said yes. The case was called Browder v. Gale. There were 5 of us: Aurelia Browder, Susie McDonald, Janetta Reese, Mary Louise Smith, and me. Janetta Reese dropped out after she was threatened, but the rest of us stayed. We were not the faces of the movement. Our names did not appear in newspaper headlines. Our photographs were not circulated to raise money. But we were the ones who stood up in federal court and told our stories under oath. I was not afraid. I had already been arrested. I had already been dragged off a bus. I had already been shamed and rejected and forgotten. There was nothing left to take from me. I testified about what happened on March 2, 1955. I told the court about the bus driver and the white woman and the police. I told them about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and the hands that held me in my seat. I told them that I was not trying to be a hero. I was just trying to get home from school. The lawyers asked me questions. They asked about my arrest and my conviction and my life. I answered every question truthfully. And then we waited. On June 5, 1956, a federal court ruled that bus segregation in Montgomery was unconstitutional. 2 judges said yes. 1 judge said no, but yes was enough. The city appealed to the Supreme Court. On November 13, 1956, the Supreme Court upheld the ruling. Segregated buses were illegal. The Constitution meant what it said. All people, regardless of race, were entitled to equal protection under the law. The boycott ended on December 20, 1956. Martin Luther King Jr. and E.D. Nixon and Rosa Parks rode the first desegregated bus. Photographers captured the moment. History books recorded it. I was not on that bus. I was at home, taking care of my son. I left Montgomery in 1958. I had a baby boy named Raymond. I was a single mother with no education and no skills and no prospects. The white people in Alabama didn't want to hire a girl who had defied the segregation laws, and some of the black people still looked at me like I was trouble they couldn't afford. So I went north, like so many before me. I packed my few belongings and I took my son and I moved to New York City. New York was not the promised land. It was cold and crowded and expensive, but nobody told me to move to the back of the bus. Nobody called me by my first name while expecting me to call them Mister. Nobody threatened to drag me off to jail for sitting in the wrong seat. I got a job as a nurse's aide at a Catholic nursing home. I worked there for 30 years. 30 years. Think about that. I helped take care of elderly people. I bathed them and fed them and changed their sheets. I held their hands when they were scared. I sat with them when they were dying. I did work that nobody wanted to do, work that was invisible and underpaid and essential. I was good at it. I raised my sons. Raymond grew up. I had another son, Randy. He became a professor. I was so proud of him. I was proud of both of them. I was proud that I had kept them alive and fed and clothed and educated. I was proud that they became good men. And I was invisible. Nobody knew my name. Nobody knew what I had done. The history books talked about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. and the Montgomery bus boycott, and that was fine. That was as it should be. They were the leaders. They were the symbols. They were the ones who had been chosen. I had not been chosen, but I was still here. The years passed. I became an old woman. My hair turned gray. My hands grew knotted with arthritis. I retired from the nursing home in 2004, and I thought maybe that my life was over. I had done my work. I had raised my children. I had lived my life. And then something strange happened. People started finding me. Historians first. They came to my apartment in New York and asked me questions about 1955. They took out tape recorders and notebooks and asked me to tell my story. I told them. I told them about the bus and the jail and the lawsuit. I told them about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. I told them about my mother and my father and the shotgun by the door. They wrote books about me. One of them, Philip Hoos, won the National Book Award. He called his book, Claudette Colvin, Twice Toward Justice. Twice toward justice, once on the bus, once in the courtroom. I liked that. Journalists came next. They wanted interviews. They wanted photographs. They wanted to tell my story to readers who had never heard of me. I talked to the BBC and CNN and the Opera magazine. I talked to anyone who asked. I was 81 years old, and suddenly I was famous. But there was one thing left undone. My record. When I was arrested in 1955, I was convicted of assaulting a police officer. That was a lie. I never assaulted anyone. I never hit anyone. I never kicked anyone. I was a child who was dragged off a bus and handcuffed and taken to jail. And the state of Alabama said I was the criminal. For 66 years, I carried that record. For 66 years, I was a convicted felon in the eyes of the law. For 66 years, I waited for someone to say, this was wrong. We were wrong. You were right. In 2021, I decided to ask. My lawyers filed a petition to have my record expunged. That's a fancy word for erased. Wiped clean, made like it never happened. I was 82 years old. I had lived most of my life. I had raised my children. I had buried one of them, my Raymond, gone in 1993, taken from me too soon, like so many sons of black mothers taken too soon. I had watched my grandchildren grow up. And I wanted, before I died, to be innocent. The hearing was in Montgomery, Alabama. I went back to the city where I had been arrested, the city where I had been convicted, the city where I had been forgotten. I sat in a courtroom and I waited. The judge was a black man. His name was Calvin Williams. Think about that. In 1955, a black man could not be a judge in Alabama. In 1955, a black man could not even vote in Alabama. In 1955, a black man was still being lynched for looking at a white woman wrong. And here was Judge Calvin Williams, in his black robe, sitting on the bench, holding the power to clear my name. My daughter-in-law leaned over. She said, "This is taking too long. You're tired. Maybe we should leave." I looked at her, I smiled, and I stayed. Judge Williams signed the order. He said my arrest was based on nothing more than racial prejudice and a desire to enforce racial segregation. He said I had acted courageously. He said I deserved justice. He said my record was expunged. I was 82 years old. I had waited 66 years to hear those words, and when I heard them, I did not cry. I did not cheer. I did not raise my hands in triumph. I just sat there in my seat, and I thought about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. Their hands were still on my shoulders. They had never left. I am old now. I was born in 1939, the same year that Gone with the Wind came out in theaters. That movie was about the Old South, the plantation South, the South where people like me were property. It won the Oscar for Best Picture. It was shown in theaters where I could not sit in the front row. I have lived through segregation and integration, through Jim Crow and civil rights, through the election of a black president, and the rise of a movement that says Black Lives Matter. I have seen so much change, and I have seen so much stay the same. People ask me sometimes, are you angry? Angry that Rosa Parks got the credit? Angry that the movement left you behind? Angry that you spent 30 years changing bedpans while other people got famous telling your story? No, I'm not angry. I am grateful. I am grateful that I lived long enough to see my name cleared. I am grateful that I lived long enough to know that my grandchildren will not have to carry my shame. I am grateful that I lived long enough to tell my story in my own words, to the journalists and historians and young people who came to my apartment and sat at my kitchen table and listened. But mostly, I am grateful that I was on that bus. I was 15 years old. I was a girl from Pine Level, Alabama, a girl with no money and no connections and no future. I was nobody. And yet, when history needed me, I was there. I did not plan it. I did not prepare for it. I did not wake up that morning and think, today I will change the world. I just sat down on a bus and refused to get up. And that refusal echoed through the years, through the courts and the legislatures and the streets, through the boycott and the lawsuit and the Supreme Court decision, through the decades of obscurity and the sudden late-in-life recognition. That refusal is still echoing. I am 86 years old as I tell you this. Or rather, I was 86. I don't know how old I will be when you hear it. I don't know how much time I have left. But I know this. History does not need heroes. History needs ordinary people who, in a single moment, choose not to move. History needs the seamstress and the teenager. History needs the preacher and the plaintiff. History needs the mothers who teach their children to survive, and the fathers who sit up all night with shotguns, and the judges who, generations later, finally say what should have been said all along. History needs hands, pushing down on shoulders, holding us in our seats. I have felt those hands. I know they are real. They are the hands of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. Yes, but they are also the hands of my mother, who hit me to save me. They are the hands of my father, who guarded the door. They are the hands of the lawyers who filed the lawsuit and the judges who ruled in our favor and the journalists who would not let my story die. They are your hands now. You who listen to this story, you who carry it forward, you who sit in your own seats, facing your own moments, feeling your own history pressing down on your shoulders. Do not move. Do not give up your seat. The hands are pushing. Let them hold you. I want to tell you one more thing. After my record was expunged, a reporter asked me why I had waited so long to clear my name. Why now? Why at 82? Why after 66 years? I said, I want us to move forward and be better. When I think about why I'm seeking to have my name cleared by the state, it is because I believe if that happened, it would show the generation growing up now that progress is possible and things do get better. It will inspire them to make the world better. That's what I said. But here is what I meant. I wanted the children to know. I wanted the little girls with dark skin and poor families and no prospects to know that they matter. I wanted them to know that they do not have to be perfect to be worthy. I wanted them to know that the movement did not begin with the people they see on posters, and it will not end with the people they see on television. It begins with a girl on a bus. It begins with anyone who refuses to move. It begins with you. When I die, I want people to remember me not as a hero, but as a woman who did what she had to do. I want them to remember that I loved my sons. I want them to remember that I worked hard my whole life. I I want them to remember that I laughed, because I did laugh often and loudly at silly jokes and funny memories and the pure joy of being alive. I want them to remember that I was afraid, that I cried when the police dragged me off the bus, that I felt ashamed when I became pregnant, that I spent decades wondering if I had done the right thing or if I had just made my life harder for no reason. But I also want them to remember that I stayed. I stayed in that seat. I stayed in that courtroom. I stayed in the movement, even when the movement didn't want me. I stayed alive, through poverty and obscurity and heartbreak, long enough to see my name cleared and my story told. Staying is its own kind of courage. Sitting still is its own kind of resistance. Being invisible for 66 years and still believing that justice will come, that is faith. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days. She was born in the 1870s, just a few years after slavery ended. She remembered her mother, who had been enslaved. She remembered the stories her mother told her about the auction block and the whipping post and the long, desperate flight to freedom. She told me, "Claudette, freedom is not a place you arrive. It is a road you walk, and every generation must walk it again." I didn't understand what she meant when I was young. I thought freedom was something you won, like a war, and then it was yours forever. But now I know. Freedom is not a destination. It is a journey. It is a bus ride that never ends. Every generation must choose to stay in their seats. Every generation must feel the hands on their shoulders. Every generation must refuse to move. I am old now. I am tired. I have walked this road for 86 years, and my feet are worn and my back is bent and my hands are knotted with age. But I am still on the bus. And I am not getting up. Not for the white woman, not for the bus driver, not for the police or the judges or the movement leaders who said I was not good enough to represent them. Not for anyone. I am staying in my seat. History has me glued to it. And when I finally lay down this burden, when I finally step off this bus and into whatever comes next, I know that someone else will take my place. Someone young, someone brave, someone who has learned that the hands of the ancestors are always pushing down on their shoulders. Someone who will not move. Someone who will stay. This is the story of Claudette Colvin. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, on September 5, 1939. I was the oldest of 8 sisters. I grew up on a farm without electricity. I learned at 6 years old not to touch the hand of a white child. I was arrested at 15 for refusing to give up my seat on a bus. I became a mother at 16. I was a plaintiff in the lawsuit that ended bus segregation. I worked for 30 years as a nurse's aide. I raised 2 sons. I buried one of them. I waited 66 years to have my record expunged. I lived long enough to know that my story mattered. I died on January 13, 2026. I was 86 years old. And on the day I died, somewhere in America, a young girl sat down on a bus and refused to move. She did not know my name. She had never heard my story. But she felt the hands on her shoulders. And she stayed. That is my legacy. That is the fruit of my labor. That is the hope and faith that sustained me through all the years of obscurity and struggle and silence. That is why I can say, at the end of my long life, I have reaped some of what I sowed. I have seen some of what I dreamed. I have touched some of what I reached for. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. In memory of Claudette Colvin. September 5, 1939, January 13, 2026. History had me glued to the seat.